At this point, you'll have a technology folder, so make sure you're in Google Drive and go to My Drive. Technology folder, 3D drawing, challenges. And where we're doing challenges is from these higher level, more difficult drawings to make. And so the purpose of this video is going to teach you guys a couple of different ways to approach a problem. And so I'll pinch to zoom in on this one. Drawing 5 has a lot of different things going on. There are rounded circles, there's different labels that might be unfamiliar, there's an angle here, and really it's kind of like where to start. And usually it's kind of nice to try to get the whole outer chunk going first. Now I'm not sure what's going on there, so let me fix that and change my tools. I think the thickness is probably fine, but we'll make sure we get this pencil going. Let's see if we can get it blue too. Now if you go along this path, you'll notice that this 60 starts here, but there's still like rounding back there, which means you probably need to get frustrated with me because I'm having a hard time getting this color to turn blue. Okay, so I selected it, clicked on it, tool showing, see blue, showing up white. Anybody have any ideas? There we go. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so you're going along this direction, but you'll see that the 60 keeps on going. And then it goes 9 and then 12, and some distance further, and then it goes back, and I'm kind of behind the image, and then it's rounded like so. So you have to ask yourself, how long is this distance here? And because we can assume it's symmetrical, it will be 9. That's a magnifying glass. It's supposed to look like the number 9. So let's go ahead and not worry about this rounded back part yet. And instead, let's just worry about this 60. So now we're going to start drawing. Go to SketchUp. Pause the video if you need to. Open up a new drawing. We won't really worry about dimensions or anything because it's not like it's specified inches and all of that. We'll delete this person. I'm going to hit O for orbit because I'd like my viewing window to match the drawing that I'm dealing with. And when I look at this drawing, it seems like it's kind of slanted and angled down. So as I orbit this, and I'm patient, because this can be a little tough. Trying to get in an angle that matches that drawing's angle. And I'd say that's pretty good. Now I could draw this using a rectangle, but today I'll use lines. So I'm going to hit L. I also could choose the pencil, and I'm going to click here and angle in this direction. Now when I go to type in 60, I make sure I type 60, which overrides the length. And I'll remind you guys that as I move the cursor, the length gets forgotten over here. So I have to make sure that I hit 60, but then don't touch my trackpad or anything, and I just hit the Enter key. So now I'm zoomed way far out, and if you don't see it, remember that there's also a Zoom Extents button, which is your magnifying glass that looks like this, which will bring in the full extents of anything you've drawn. Well, that's too close, so you'd want to back out again. Really, once you get comfortable with orbiting and all of that stuff, drawing gets a lot easier, but that's kind of the first hurdle to get over with when you're drawing. So now I'm moving in this green direction so that it's parallel to that. And when I look at this and I know that that's 9, I'd be like, well, 9 and 9 make 18, and 12 make 30. And don't forget that you have a keyboard right at your fingertips if you want. Command spacebar. 9 plus 12 plus 9, and then if you do it correctly, it'll tell you that that's 30. So that means that I'm going to go 30 in this direction. If I said anything too quickly, you can jump back. And then I want it to be red. You can also use arrow keys to constrain it based on the plane. And then here's 60. Enter. But now I have to get like a rounded shape here, which you can do using an arc. But a lot of times I just like to close it in and then try to draw a circle based on the midpoint. So if I go back to this drawing, all I've done is made a rectangular shape to hold this. I've not done the rounding part yet. And since you look up here and you see that it does match the center of that circle, that means that when we go to draw this, you can hit C for circle. You could also go to your rectangle and find other shapes under here usually. And if not there, so I'll click right at the midpoint when I have the circle tool selected, and I'm going to go to the outside, and I'm going to click. So I now have a circle that is kind of looking like a basketball court, and it's a half circle matching right there. But I don't want these lines. So I'm going to hit E for erase. I can also use the erase tool. Remember, if anything's ever acting weird, you can usually hit escape a bunch, or you can just use your select tool to try and click away from things. And then I'll do a click and drag with the erase tool to get rid of those lines. I could push it up, but it might be nice to remove these corners. When I look at these corners, I see that it's 9 and 9. And I'm going to show you really maybe even up to like 3 different ways to do this part. The first, which some people like, is by drawing a rectangle. When I hit R, that takes me to the rectangle shape. I always could just click it as well. And so I'll hit my first click here, but I'm not doing a click and drag. The reason I'm not doing a click and drag is if I do a click and drag, it's kind of hard for me to release and then go to these dimensions. So instead I'll click once and I'll move in this direction. I do want it to be on the face. I don't want it to like turn green or whatever. And I'm not, I'm just telling it to move in that direction. So then for dimensions, normally we think of dimensions as being 9 by 9, but here we're going to have 9, 9, because that's the way that SketchUp does dimensions. When I hit enter, that gives me this shape. And that tells me that I have cutoff points here and here. And then what this rectangle would look like would be a rectangle here. So I need to draw a diagonal next. I'll draw a diagonal by choosing my line tool. And then any excess stuff I've created, I want to erase, which means I take away this and I take away the corner. If we did the exact same thing over here, that would be great. Another tip is you could really copy and paste this shape, dump it, pick it up and move it here as well, before you draw the diagonals, because it just kind of messes it up. That's assuming, you know, it is mirrored and it's the same looking thing. Because I said I wanted to show you guys multiple ways of doing things, I'm going to redo this. If you want to pause the video and try to do it that one way I suggested, be my guest. And the other way I want to show you is like just by drawing lines that have no purpose other than to give you a stopping point. So I'm going to click on this endpoint, and I'm going to draw in this direction, and I'm just going to hit 9. Now my line gets lost, and it looks like nothing happened. But if I move slowly, I don't want to click here because that would be the midpoint. And instead I want to go here, and I could just tag it. That line is going to have no purpose other than to just let me know where I'm at. Then if I click over here, same idea again, 9, enter. And I'll hover until I find that endpoint. And I don't really have to draw this line again because I would know that it would just go here. And then I would erase all the excess. Now, even though this area over here looks incorrect because it doesn't look as big, it's more about perspective and point of view than it is the shape. So now we have the absolute outside shape of this. And as this would get lifted up, before I would lift it all the way up, I would only lift it up 9. And if you're like, oh, well, hey, couldn't that be a 6? I think you need to change your perspective. And so I'm going to push this up to a height of 9. So now we got other challenges. There's a lot of different ways we could deal with this. So here, instead of pushing it all the way up and then subtracting from it, I'm pushing it up as a chunk. And I know that this next thing I'm about to do is probably going to be easiest to deal with the flat surfaces rather than the angled surfaces. And I have to figure out how much higher this chunk needs to go up. Well, if this is 9 and that's 30, then this value would be 21. And I know that I need to push it up that much, but that doesn't tell me how far back I'm going. And so to figure out how far back I'm going, I'm looking for any other measurements that are along this direction other than 60. So here's 60, and then here's 18. And if I look at this 18 does stop at the center, which means that this 18 comes back 18 from that rounded point. So if I know that I drew this accurately, I could draw from here to there if I wanted. So I tagged it, thought about it. I'm going from the center. Why am I doing it this way rather than drawing from here? Just because I think it might be easier for some people to see. But if you'd rather do it that way, be my guest. The other thing too is I could draw this line just for the heck of it and then get rid of it. So then I'm going to draw 18 back. And then here, if I draw it like this, no big deal, but it's kind of two separate line segments. So maybe it's better to tag it, make sure it's green, and go to here. And then I'll erase this junk. I tested that just to see that it was one segment. So if you remember that measurement, the next thing I push up is 21, but since it's been a little while, here's that 21, here's that 9, and it came from this 30. I'll push it up 21, because 21 and 9 gives me 30. Now since I have this, I think I'll deal with the circular part here. And when I look at this R, 7.5, that means that the radius is 7.5. And whenever you draw a circle, like maybe it'll be too big, usually this gets a little bit obvious. Earlier when we assumed that this was 9, you also could have cross-referenced it with that 30. So here I go, I got this, I can see that it's the same center, so I'm going to get over here and I'm going to click. And if you don't get the same guidelines as easy as I do there, you can always draw a line to help you build that circle. Come on, computer, don't fail me now. Leave me alone. So here's the circle. I've created it at the center, and I'm going to go with 7.5. But notice that it is asking for the radius. If it was asking for the diameter, I'd have to cut it in half. So I'll type in 7.5 as a decimal. I'll override it, and I'll hit enter. When I jump back to the picture, that seems reasonable. Let's say I would have doubled 7.5 and made it 15. That didn't seem reasonable. That seems wrong. So here I feel good. This drawing doesn't show that it's going all the way through. We will assume that it's going all the way through. Sometimes you'll have drawings that give you dashed lines here so that you know it's totally hollow, and then you have something at the bottom too. And I'll hit P for push. You also have your push and extrusion tool there. I'll click once and I'll go and I'll try to tag it all the way to the bottom. When I orbit my point of view, I can see that indeed it is totally hollow. Next, what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to draw this little chunk that we have not dealt with. And you can see that it's a triangle, so maybe you could deal with it that way if you wanted. You could also see that it's like, kind of a rectangle that got stretched up. We could do it that way. There's all kinds of different ways you could do this. But what's a little bit challenging is, drawing this so that it's 7. So it's 7 wide, but we do know that it's in the middle. So I'm just going to draw a line. And it's all about personal preference. I could do this. I also could do this. So I think I'll do it using this right now. Well, if it's got to be 7, then I know that I'm going to move halfway 7 over, halfway over in the other direction. So what's half of 7? 3.5. So if I click here, there's my 3.5 I'm typing in. Nothing seems to have happened, but I've created a endpoint of a line here, and I'll just draw it down. Well, if I move 3.5 in that direction, I'm going to do the same here. And so I'll type 3.5. And I did that quicker because I'm assuming you guys are feeling pretty confident here. Now this line has no purpose anymore. By the way, you can always check your work. You can just draw a line over it and it'll show you the dimensions of it. But you could also use a dimension tag. Oh my gosh. Click here, click there, and you'll see that it is 7 inches. So back to the drawing, hit L, and complete this. It should be red, that way it's symmetrical. And then really if you leave these here, that's kind of a problem because you would have something on the center. So we're going to have you delete those faces. Now I didn't delete lines, I deleted faces. So I'm using my select tool, and I'm targeting a face, hitting delete, and then I'm being thorough by erasing this line as well. And then all I got to do is connect these chunks here. And you can make a prediction. If I haven't messed something up, what should happen? It will be closed in on all sides. If you go back and you try to erase this line, let's see what happens. It goes away. It is not structurally sound without that line. But here they're not showing it because it's nice and smooth, it's flush. They felt like they didn't need to show that. And as a final step, click on Save. Don't worry about that warning. Purge it. Save it to the correct location under your drive. Technology, 3D drawing, drawing challenges, and then if you look here, it's drawing 5. If you have patiently gone through this video, I'm not saying you'll be able to recreate everything you did, but you've learned a lot and you'll be able to try things and take some risks because, hey, this is some high-level, fun, and exciting stuff, in this guy's opinion. Good work.